morning.
You're very happy to can ask some questions now. Let's start with the first one. What's human consciousness? Is an ancient question that ever since come along the history of thought in all cultures. Do you believe that the answer is closer today than in the past?
I have to modify this answer. On the one hand, we have of course done more reflecting in the last few hundred years on this question, what is human consciousness, than had been done before. And especially in very recent years, it has become a field of interest for science. However, I do not think that we are closer to answering it, because I think we are asking about the wrong kind of consciousness in the wrong context with the wrong kind of consciousness. We are caught up in thought. We are not using thought, but thought is using us. And in that realm of consciousness, we will never get results of what true consciousness is. If we rise beyond thought, we come in touch with true or pure consciousness. There are many levels, and that level, our scientific exploration of consciousness has not even touched. Therefore, I think we are not at all close to really understanding consciousness.
Brother David, you said that in your book, The Universe as a Home.
Yeah?
It's a title in English?
It is called Belonging to the Universe, but yeah, it's nicely translated. It's in Italian, right?
The Universe as a Home.
Yeah, yeah. And we liked it much better in Italian than in this, yeah.
You said that one of the more intrinsic instinct of the human being is the need of meaning.
Yeah.
The research of meaning. Do you think that this instinct is linked to the consciousness?
A search for meaning, is that a link to consciousness? I do not think that it is a link to reflect. It doesn't strike me right now that the search for meaning would be would directly lead to reflexive exploration of consciousness. But in a wider sense, yes, I think so, because meaning is, I've defined meaning as that within which the mind finds rest. You see, that where we can find rest. We are restless until we find meaning. When we found meaning, then we can rest until some other quest comes up. But when we find the ultimate meaning, then we have found ultimate rest. If we ever find that, I'm not sure. But if we can find ultimate meaning, our mind comes to rest. And so the search for meaning impels us to look for ultimate meaning. And in that respect, it definitely leads also to the question, who am I? And who is it that is asking, who am I? And so we do come into the field of consciousness. Is that sort of a request? Yeah.
I've heard you talk about the meaning of being conscious. Can you explain something about this particular experience that we can summarize with the question, how do I know when I know that I'm conscious?
Yes. I am aware of being. I am aware of being, and that doesn't mean aware of a being, not even of myself as a being. That's very important. But of being, simply essere, Latin essere, being. Essere probably in Italian. And that, it is very important to stress that, which can only be experientially verified, that this notion of being is what we are talking about here, is not the notion of an abstraction of other beings, and so you see many dogs and so you say dog, and you see many beings and you so abstract and you say being. No, we are talking about something for which this abstract notion of this abstracted notion of being is only a symbol. We are talking about something that one cannot really talk about it, because in order to talk about it, you would have to define it and then put it in a word, and you can't. So you're only using this being, awareness of being, this expression, as a pointer to something that is beyond speech. But when I point to it and you follow this pointer, you can interiorly also come to find this point of experience where you are simply aware of being, where I am. But this I in I am is then completely empty of ego. It's just more correct to say am. Am would be right. And you can find that point.
Can you tell me something in this research to reach this
How to
point?
reach this
How
point?
to reach?
Very easy, very easy. I mean, the instructions are very easy. Doing is not very easy. But the instruction is simply be in the present moment. And the reason why we are not being, we are not in touch with being, is that we are always 50% of me is in the future waiting for something and stretching out to something, and 49% of me is hanging on to what is the past, and only 1% is present in the present moment. If I could be 100% present in the present moment, then I would experience being. Being in the present moment can be practiced in a variety of ways. One is just to remind yourself every so often, am I really here? Or am I somewhere else? My thoughts carrying me away. Or am I really here? And another way that is helpful is to be grateful, to recognize that every moment is a gift. It's given to you. You haven't produced it, you haven't bought it, you haven't often even wanted it. So it's given to you. And this can be trained, this awareness of every, we even speak in English of a given moment. Do you have an Italian expression like that?
Yes, there's a momento dato.
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 That's
Donato.
donato. Even donato, you say in Italian?
Like a present.
Did you really say that? Yeah?
Donato.
Donato. Well, there it is. It's exactly the same. So if it is donato, the only appropriate response is gratefulness. You see? And if you cultivate this gratefulness, first of all, it makes you happy, because if you are grateful, this is an experience of joy. Even if you are grateful for a challenge, a difficulty, it is a joyful experience. If you're not grateful, you take it for granted and you are not joyful. You're just in a trance. But when you are grateful, it's joyful. So this is a practice that works very fast to give you joy. And if something gives you joy, you want to repeat it. So the practice of gratefulness is relatively easily learned, certainly more easily than Zen or yoga or whatever other practice. It's a very easy and sort of everyday practice. But it leads to the same goal. If you are really grateful, you are in the present moment. When you're in the present moment, you're joyful and you are aware of being. You can say, am.
So this is the reason why you are still a Christian monk, if I'm not wrong. Because in the Christianity, the expression I am is not very at the center of the dogma.
Oh, it's very central. It's very central.
It's very central.
Rightly understood. There are, particularly in the Gospel according to John, many passages in which Jesus says, I am. You see, I am. And they are underlined by John. They put in a very important position because John uses these passages to show that Jesus is divine. Because I am is what God says to Moses in the burning bush. This is a very important passage. So I am is a divine saying, and if we can say I am, we have touched the Christ reality in us. That is now speaking in Christian terms. We have touched the Christ reality in us. That means the divine reality in every human being. Every human being. And so it's very central to Christianity, and it's of great interest to other human beings if they want to learn that, speak that particular language. But the reality is the same whether they speak the language or not. When they are in the present moment, they experience am, the awareness of being, and that is experiencing the divine within you. That's the consciousness of the divine within you. And I am practicing this as a Christian monk because I have been brought up in this way, and I see I'm not practicing not because I think that this Christian way is the only way. Many Christians say that. I certainly don't believe this is the only way, but I believe that it is a way that leads there, and when you are on one way, it's just as well to keep on that way rather than to go to some other way. It's just a detour to go to some other way. But I have enough experience of Zen, for instance, Zen Buddhism, to know that Zen gets you there too.
Brother David, could you share with us the moment in which you were do you remember the
moments in which we are aware of being? Yeah. Let me just add something to what Domenico asked, because before I forget. Yes, when I say that one way is as good as the other, I'm not. I want to add to that. Choose a way. Because very often when you tell somebody one way is as good as the other, they sit down and don't walk anymore. They are not using any way. This is absolutely the wrong conclusion, and therefore, for I think educational purposes, many different ways all say ours is the only way. Because if you tell somebody this is the only way, all right, they start walking. But if you say there are many different ways, for some reasons, psychological reasons, they just sit back and don't walk. So I want to make sure, choose a way and go, which way is not so important, but be on the way, you see? And to Christians, I often say, when Jesus says, I am the way, he doesn't say, I am this one way. This is the Christ speaking, the Christ reality made to speak through the mouth of Jesus in the Gospels. He's not saying, all the other ways are wrong. He says, anybody who is on the way, which means walking, is on the way. And that's me, the Christ reality. Doesn't matter what name you give to it. But you have to be on the way. And even if you are on the right path, so to say, but you're sitting down, you're not on the way, because to be on the way means to be walking. Just to sit there is not to be on the way. So it doesn't matter what the way is named. It is to be on the way. Then, according to the Christian teaching, you are on the way that Christians call Christ.
This is a very open.
It has to be open.
Of
Absolutely, it has to be open that way. Because if we are not open in this way, we are going on to kill one another, as we have done for a long time now, and the world can no longer stand that. It has no future unless we open on this deepest level to one another. Now I come to Ricardo's question, when do I experience that? I experience it and in what Abraham Maslow, the psychiatrist, calls peak experiences. That is the easiest way to speak about it. And these peak experiences come as gift. You can't bring them about. You can just prepare yourself mentally for receiving them when they come. And I have not found any better preparation but to live gratefully. Grateful living, you see, living in the moment is a good preparation. And then comes a moment, and that doesn't have to be any special moment at all. That can be when you are waiting in the waiting room to go to the dentist. Or it can be when you are at a stoplight and the light is red and you're just waiting there, doing nothing. At that moment, or it can be a very special moment, like a wonderful sunset that you're watching. It can come at any time. Suddenly you feel that you are one with all. See, that is a characteristic of this peak experience. The experience of complete oneness, not only with what you see there, but with all, a universal, limitless belonging, you see, limitless belonging. And we human beings long to belong. That is one way of speaking about our restlessness, of our search for meaning, you see. And when we experience, I belong, then we have found meaning, then we have found something within we can rest. And that these peak moments are states of bliss and of oneness and of full, deep, higher consciousness. But they're only states that come and go. What we want to reach is a level, a stage, not a state, but a stage. I think I used the term wrong. I wanted to say it's just a state of consciousness, but what we want to achieve is a stage, a higher level of consciousness. And Maslow spoke about this as like a plateau from which these peaks don't seem so high anymore because you're already starting out very high. So once you have tasted the good taste of being one with all, you want to live on that level. And the way to live on it is that you behave as if you really experience that. In other words, you let this experience of being one with all flow into your everyday actions. And that means loving, kind, compassionate, wise action. And that is the difference between every one of us and what we call the great mystics, because whom we so admire, because this peak experience is everybody's mystic experience. And actually Maslow called it the mystic experience. Only in psychological literature, mystic experience didn't sit so very well. So he very soon changed it to peak experience, which is also a very good expression. But to the end of his life, he insisted that you could not distinguish what he calls the peak experience, in which, as far as one can generalize in psychology, everybody has, once in a while. You cannot distinguish that psychologically from what we know about the great mystic experiences of Saint Teresa and of Saint John of the Cross and whoever else you might name, to the extent to which they wrote about it. The difference is that these great mystics lived by it. They cultivated it in their life. They let this awareness of being one with all determine their actions. While most of us think, oh, this was a nice moment, or even sometimes, oh, this was a moment of insanity, and then go on in this insane world and conform to it and live an insane life. Because the way that we now live, with this alienation from one another, is an insane life, and it drives the world to destruction. See? And so this has to be changed. And not because I say so or because anybody else says so, but because we are heading towards this, to self-destruction. You only need to read the news and you will see that, right?
Yes.
I think we can, it's one of the few points on which many people can agree.
Yeah. And we have to have the help of many persons like you with your experience to change this condition, this insane condition of the world.
By changing our consciousness. And this is also true. There are many more, it seems to me that there are many more teachers of this consciousness, of this higher consciousness around than there were before. And also many more people who are ready for it, or even have already risen to a higher stage of consciousness, yes, a high level of consciousness. There are many more today. We have to just reach the critical mass, then we will have a new world. And one author who, there are many wonderful authors. His Holiness the Dalai Lama writes about these things, and many others write about it. But one author that I would definitely recommend as being the clearest, simplest, best teacher, I consider him my own teacher just from his books, I've never met him personally, is Eckhart Tolle. And I think his books are probably also translated into Italian. His most famous first book is called The Power of Now. There's other books and his tapes and so on. But Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, if somebody wants to read that, it will definitely help them. If you don't just read it like another book, but if you really allow it to guide you, transform you, that can help you, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Good, good.
See you soon again.
I hope so too, and thank you for your good questions.
Thank you.